Hello and welcome to this Q&A session for the short film package Memories of a Recent Past, which is presented in competition as part of the 31st edition of Nordisk Panorama. The films in this program are not only eligible to the best Nordic short film, but also have a chance to win the Audience Award. So if you haven't done it yet, please go and vote for your favorite film. My name is Lucile Bourliaud. I'm one of the short film programmers and I will be the Q&A moderator today. The films in the program that we are going to talk about they'll look at different types of relationships, family bonds or romantic bonds. They also look at our dreams, desires, sometimes regrets. I have the pleasure of talking with four filmmakers today, so please welcome Lauri-Matti Parppei for the film The Last Day. Thank you for being with us. Patricia Bbaale Bandak for the film Villekulla. Niki Lindroth van Bahr for Something to Remember. And Signe for the film The Nannies. So thanks a lot to all of you. I'm going to start right away with a question to the filmmaker with the only animation film in the program. So Niki, your film is called Something to Remember. It's a puppet stop motion film and also a musical. It's not your first time making a musical. Your previous film, The Burden, also used this form. So I was curious about who you worked with and how did you work on this project? Do you go back and forth with the composer, or how does it all work?
Yeah, in this film, I actually used like the original song in this film is actually like a very old Swedish lullaby for kids, but we've exchanged the lyrics for obviously some darker lyrics, and also my composer Hans Appelqvist, who made all of the original music for The Burden as well. He made a new arrangement for this music, and also Martin Luuk, who's a Swedish great author and comedian. He made also the lyrics for The Burden, and he made the lyrics for this film as well. According to some instructions. So I think that this film is. I just wanted to try out really like to make a lullaby like before the great disaster instead of just a lullaby for children. I think maybe we all need some sort of comforting lullaby these days.
Yeah, it's very timely. Each scene is a different situation and the lyrics seem to tell a bigger story that we would just have a snippet of. So how was it written? Is there a bigger story behind each of these stories?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, like, we had different themes that we went through, and we just found like separate stories or thoughts, and then I just added, or like I combined them with this, you know, what you see, the visual like situations and the scenes. So I just felt that it was kind of fun to just a bit randomly add the stories with these situations, because something else came up, you know, when putting them together. And the what do you say, the scenes in themselves is just some sort of, I don't know, just different thoughts that I kept in my, like somewhere in my brain for a long time, like the title of the film, Something to Remember, just it's sort of like memories from like our present day, and like what they will, you know, what they will symbolize further ahead. And yeah.
Thank you. Lauri-Matti, your film is also a musical of sorts. So it's the story of a couple in a long-distance relationship who decide to break up and they spend their last day together. And there is an Orthodox Christian choir commenting on their actions. So how did you happen to work with a choir?
Well, the idea was that, to be honest, I sort of hate musicals. So me and the producer, I was a film school dropout, so I went back to school to sort of make this because financing films is so slow. So we decided we will make something so crazy we couldn't like ever finance in the real world. So we made a musical. But I don't know. My sort of cultural background is in Greek Orthodoxy, though I'm a very hard-boiled atheist. But still, I love the music and the traditions, and the music has this sort of very holy feeling to it. So having the choir music as narrator felt that it sort of embodied like how big some feelings can feel inside you and how like holy they can feel at times, like being heartbroken or being alone or sad and so on.
The actors have dialogues that are half sung, half spoken. Was it? Did you have to rehearse a lot with them to get this right?
Well, no, and I was a bit afraid of that. We had this little rehearsals about that, and it's this recitative which is used in like Greek Orthodox Christian liturgy, like quite church events, and it was very, very scary. A lot of the dialogue, even when it's sung, it is improvised, and the method was somewhat harrowing in many ways, but we managed to get a film out of it, which I'm pretty glad about. But the choir music itself was, I always had, while directing, I had this what's it called, you take a sound out of an iron, and how I gave the voices to them, to the actors, so that it would like be in the same tone as the choir music that was being written at the same time by me.
This has been really interesting on set.
Yes.
Thank you. Patricia, your film is a very personal documentary in which you film your family, brothers and sisters, doing a gathering in a big house where there's a lot of dancing, laughing, and also very profound conversations. It's called Villekulla. Although it's kind of explained in the film why this title, can you expand a bit on this? Why did you choose this title?
I chose the title because in many ways Pippi's upbringing kind of have some similarities to my own. My siblings and I grew up in this big house with our dead mother and a father who was never there. But I remember much of my childhood as being fun. Like, we invented many things. I remember when one of my brothers he must have been maybe 15, we decided that we needed a new bathroom. And so we literally just began, taking down the tiles and all that stuff. And all of this was before YouTube. So we rented a book at the library. And so I grew up in a very untraditional household where, in good ways and bad ways, children were raising children. But there was also this sense of, yes, we can do it, because we were so many, and I think that also lifted us. So yeah, that was kind of why I chose Villekulla.
You captured something very beautiful in your film, this sense of togetherness and these bonds that are very hard to describe. Was it easy to film people so close to you? And was it easy for them to be filmed? And did you have help from the outsiders, if I can say, people who are not from this family?
I think it's the most difficult film I've ever made. Like, filming my family was horrible because it's, it was not fun at all. It looks fun in the film, but behind the scene, I was crying all the time. But of course I had help. I had my entire team, so I didn't make the film myself, of course. But there's also hierarchy in a family, and I'm the second youngest, and so also being in charge of my, we had all these dynamics. But in the beginning, I was actually thinking that I was going to be behind the camera and just look at my siblings. but then I realized that would have made it even more awkward for them. Like I had to participate with them, and that actually made the experience more even. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Signe, your film has some similarities with Villekulla, although it's very different in its form. It's also a personal documentary about your family, and it's like an investigation. You try to remember all the nannies who look after you after your mother passed away, and you mix archive interviews and reconstruction with actors. So what was the first piece of this puzzle? What was the starting point of this investigation?
When I started my film, I actually had no idea about what the film was about. So the first thing I did was to call the nannies. And actually I wanted to make an animated documentary in the beginning. So I just recorded the sound, no image. And then I got these very good pieces of sound. And unfortunately the animated documentary was never financed, because it's quite expensive. And then I needed to think, how can I use these bits of sound in another way?
So you take us back to the late 80s, early 90s with like costume design and hairstyles. We have to talk about these because there's an amazing collection of outfits straight from the 80s. I guess there has been a lot of work going behind this.
There has actually. And actually, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I would really love to work much deeper with the costumes. But yeah, there was a lot of, it was quite difficult actually to, when we shot the film, because we sent, I wrote a note, and no, sorry, I have to say, I don't live in the house anymore. And the film is shot in my childhood house. So we had to ask the people who live there now if we could come and film to make these reconstructions. And they were so sweet, they said yes. But then there was a lot of illness in the family, and it was so difficult to coordinate with all these actors. So it ended with a very stressful days of shooting. But I could go much deeper into all the costume design and all this, but I'm also quite happy with the result as it is.
Yeah, the result is quite striking already. Really, it's like time traveling through nice little details. Talking about design, I wanted to go back to Niki and talk about puppet design, because your film, star animals usually, or anthropomorphic animals. It seems like you've always been interested in this type of characters, and I wanted to know if it was an aesthetic pleasure for you to find how a bug can look like an engineer wearing a suit and tie, or is it just a nice detour for you to talk about our humanity? Where does it come from?
Yeah, I think I've always sort of enjoyed having animals as human characters, because, like, for once it kind of freaks me out a bit, like human puppets. It's just like a feeling I have that I can't really get around. But also I kind of enjoy having animals as some sort of, thinking of my films as some sort of modern fables as well, that you have, like, you sort of invite the audience into this world with some sort of cuteness filter, which would be like the animal looks, and then you can sort of work with quite more heavy themes once you're in that cuteness world. So that's one reason. I also think it's I have sort of moved towards having the animals more animal-like in the bodies. Like in my first films, they've been more like, it's been basically like human. They've been like human in human shapes, but sort of animal heads and paws and everything. But now I've sort of I've been having quite a lot of fun with like putting, forcing the real animal bodies into some sort of human outfits, like for example the bugs in the shirt and the dove in the sort of like, I don't know, like hipster outfit, like with this like very, I don't know, thick dove body and like the wings and everything. So it's just which makes it a bit more like absurd and like uncomfortable somehow. So I think that has been quite fun actually to go that way. And I always use some sort of like theme for my choice of animals in each film. And in this film, I've been working with animals that are like considered as pests in at least in Sweden, like the sort of city doves and moles and what else is there? Like this sort of like beetles in the end that are also a certain kind of pest. So that's the theme.
Yeah, not necessarily the animals we're used to seeing in animation.
No, exactly. It gets worse and worse somehow.
So I'm looking forward to seeing what's next. Lauri-Matti, in your film, you portray this last day between two lovers, and there is a certain triviality in what they do. They order takeaway, and but at the same time, these scenes become like rituals. It's very solemn because it's their last time doing this together. There is a mix of emotions and also humor because of the contrasts in the film between what is said and how it is said. Was it something you were interested in, this mix of tones?
Yeah, and well, this is a very, very sort of personal film. It's not it's not very autobiographical, but it has, well, it sort of is. But I mean, usually when you portray heartbreaks or breaking up or loneliness or whatever, it's done in a way that centers around one person's like emotions. We wanted to have I will give it some background because this the film kind of has a connection with Nordisk Panorama, because I had a film on the festival in 2014, and I decided that I will have my first one night stand in Sweden. So I actually managed to, I hadn't ever done that, and I managed to do that, but unfortunately I ended up spending 2.5 years with this person in Sweden. So that's why this is, and we sort of broke up that way. That's how we met, and that was that. So, and when it ended in Malmö, but it was something that I wanted to give hope that this era ends and the next begins, and we both people still are the same, and I am still the same, and everyone who, like, it doesn't have to be any sort of, it doesn't have to be sadder than that. Of course it's sad and you will miss the other person, but that's why the humor and the very total seriousness and this like very melodramatic feeling is there, of course. But yeah, like the takeaway thing, I think it's the, like nowadays when you are waiting for food and looking at the phone, a thing in the process of waiting, and yeah, the passage of time was very interesting in that.
Thank you. Signe, your film also has this mixed tones because these nannies are very nice figures, pop figures, but also these ghostly presence, like their presence is also their absence, because you're talking about blurred memories. Was it also something you wanted to do, try and be, it's a very sad story, of course, but you go on an emotional journey and it's not all sad, there's a lot of different feelings.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, like you say, it's a sad story somehow, because I lost my mother when I was 5 and then all these nannies came. But I also remember this time as like you get this new bigger sister like every third month, and it's like she's so cool, and she have this all this cool equipment and makeup, and one of the nannies talk about I really love to come into her room and just to listen to her music, and I also remember this time as so cool somehow because I was so fascinated with all these nannies.
Did you feel like working on a film, having a camera, helped getting confessions from people, or was it harder from your father and the nannies?
It was made it so much easier because when I called the nannies, I felt like a kind of a freak because I called them, do you remember me? You were my nanny like 31 years ago. But it made it so much easier to have this team behind you that you could say like, oh, it's going good. And it gave me a lot of strength. And the team was also so good because they pushed me into do things that I'm glad that I did now, but I would not do it if it had not been because of the team.
Patricia, I have the same kind of question for you, although it's different, of course. You're filming people you're in touch with, but there are some very deep conversations going on in front of the camera. Was the camera a barrier or a facilitator, would you say?
I think that I was so nervous that my family would, behave in a different manner. But they are so self-absorbed, so it only took them a couple minutes and then they didn't really think about the camera at all. But I think that obviously the camera helped because some of the conversations we've never had with them before. So for me personally, I needed, what can you say, maybe like an excuse to ask my siblings these things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like I needed to look at my family from this angle. I don't know if I don't think I would have done it otherwise. So yeah.
You say you grew up in this house, and the house seems to be like a character in the film. You really use different spaces of this house, and did you think of it that way, or was it just, did you just happen to use all these, because it's like a giant playground in a way, this house for your family?
Yeah. So we didn't grow up in that specific house.
Okay.
But in that area. And yeah, all the rooms in the film, they kind of resemble different aspects of our lives. Like we have like a music room, dancing room, party room, play. Yeah, it was like a playground. But it was also a way for my siblings to, I wanted to talk about our upbringing, but without just sitting them down and be like, okay, making a regular interview. So I wanted them to maybe relive our memories, and through that start the conversations that I wanted to start, and also to see how they would react and what they would start to talk about. So all the games and all the rooms were to take us all back and kind of, yeah, help us dive into the conversations. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I wanted to congratulate you because it's so difficult, I think, as I said, to capture how volatile relationships between brothers and sisters are, and how quickly it goes from a joke to being really annoyed at someone and then back to laughing with them. And I think that's something you really capture very well. And
Thank you.
It's not easy.
Thank you.
We're already reaching the end of the Q&A, unfortunately. There would be a lot more to talk about, but I hope the beginning of the conversations we just had will give some insight to our spectators. So if you are watching us, if you've seen these films and if you love them as much as I do, please go and vote for your favorite film for the Audience Award. Also, if you're interested in Niki's work, she is one of our special guests this year, so you can check out the conversation she is having with my colleague Sam Groves about her current projects and past projects. Thank you very much again to all of you dear filmmakers, and I hope one day soon we can meet in real life and celebrate. Thanks again. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.